further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the amazing and also our senior troll stomper on other nights, Glenda Jordan. Glenda lives in Las Vegas and works full-time as an artist, model, and entertainer. She grew up on a farm south of Nashville, Tennessee. It might have been near Murfreesboro, we don't know. She can tell us. Please tell me in a second if I said that totally wrong, where she was indoctrinated into the Southern Baptist faith from birth. After deconstructing religion in college, she became involved in activism for various causes. Joining the third wave intersectional feminist movement, Glenda believes that liberation from the patriarchy and the destructive influence of misogynistic faiths are inexorably linked. Focusing on atheistic feminism and sex positivity, Glenda is an active volunteer with RfR and other nonprofit organizations and her local queer communities. Other passions include fantasy and sci-fi, yes, Star Trek, art history, traveling, and national parks, awesome. When she's not in her studio or doing marathon Zelda gaming sessions, Glenda enjoys spending time with her partners and friends. Glenda, welcome!
Hi. Oh my goodness. What an introduction. And yes, Cara, you did pronounce that correctly. It is Murfreesboro, and that is my hometown.
What?
It's where I grew up. It is unfortunately where I grew up, Murfreesboro. Goodness. Okay, so we have a lot to cover. I'm going to go ahead and start. I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to start, and I'm going to try to get right through this because it's going to be a long conversation. So let me start my screen and let me do my keynote and let me click play. All right. Is this looking good for everybody? And can we see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. Okay. And I just want to acknowledge, I know that there are some members of my polycule in the chat. I'm so glad that you could join. I love all of you very much. Happy you're here. Okay. So to start, I hope everyone is here with an open mind and an open heart. My talk is going to cover concepts that for many of you, these might be the first time that you've been introduced to them, and it can be a lot to process. Many people get extremely anxious and uncomfortable when discussing sex and relationships. And if you find yourself in a heightened emotional state during this talk, I want you to know that you're not alone, and there's no shame in having those feelings, okay? This is truly a judgment-free space. This subject can, and again, if you have any questions, as the moderators have said, please just put it in the chat and they'll try to collect those at the end. Again, this subject can trigger intense feelings of anger and anxiety if you've been a victim of infidelity or cheating. And I want you to take the space for yourself that you need. If you find yourself too triggered to be receptive, please take heart. There's no shame in walking away. This will be recorded and uploaded later, so it's okay if you need to make that space for yourself. And to clarify, I had, with the anger about cheating and infidelity, I had 2 exclusive long-term relationships before becoming polyamorous, and I was cheated on during both of them. And it was brutal and traumatic. And I'm certain that there are several people here who understand that pain specifically, and it's awful. And exclusive and monogamous culture tells us that we're to be totally satisfied with our partner. So if they seek someone outside of us, that means that it's something about you that wasn't enough or fulfilling enough. And having that trust betrayed makes you question and value your entire identity. And that kind of goes back to the idea that we are half of one whole, or if you know this religious phrase, a third to a threefold cord. And for our exclusive partner to seek outside of this unit is a threat to who we are. But I'm going to get into that later. But so the crux of this talk is I'm going to be discussing my lifestyle of multiple romantic and sexual relationships. And for some of you, this may be frustrating to hear if you're struggling to maintain any relationship connections at all. Or maybe you were in a relationship with someone and then they wanted to change the dynamic from closed to open and you didn't want to. Or let's say you were on your 5th date with someone and on the 5th date they go, oh, by the way, I'm polyamorous and I have a girlfriend, or whatever it was. That can be a really frustrating experience. And this is all to say, I just want to take the time to recognize the spectrum of emotional space that you might find yourself in. And this is not a judgment from me, rather an honoring of just meeting you where you're at. And the last caveat I want to get in before my next slide is that my privilege as a conventionally attractive, confident, and extroverted bisexual woman in a major metropolitan area, again, as Cara said, they said I lived in Las Vegas, which is where this is. It vastly increases my success with finding and securing multiple partners. The reason my relationships stay healthy and successful is because I am a securely attached person, which I'll get into what that means. But I have done the deep inner work to access my internal feelings and desires, and I'm confident in expressing those wants and needs, and I don't shy away from having intense emotional conversations and having strong compersion. Again, we're going to get into what that means. Okay, so wait, let's see if I can get to my next slide. Hold on. There is this really terrible thing where I cannot see my cursor. There we go. Because the polls are now up, and that's why I'm glad I printed it out. Okay, so this is a really important point. What I am not going to tell you, okay? And I need everyone to look at this slide and really take it to heart. I'm not going to tell you that you personally have to try polyamory. I'm not going to tell you that polyamory is superior to being exclusive. I am not judging you or shaming you for being monogamous. And I am not saying that, sorry, again, the poll question is in my feed and I have no cursor. I'm trying to see if I can get rid of that.
Yeah, it's
yes,
totally fine
I got
if
it
you
done.
click the X. Okay,
good,
awesome.
got it done. All right, I'm not judging and shaming you for being monogamous. There is nothing wrong with being exclusive or monogamous, and not wanting to be polyamorous does not make you sex negative or a prude in any way. I really can't emphasize this slide enough. If somebody joins after this point and they miss this slide and then you see them expressing, well, she's just thinking about, again, please take this to heart as we move on to the next stuff. All right, so that we're all on the same page, we're going to go over some definitions. Yes, we all love a good glossary. And Cara, Helen, if you could put the glossary link, it's part of the resource tab. Polyamorous people, we love our terms. There's a really grand glossary of tons of things to go over. These are definitions of things that are relevant to this specific lecture. So monogamy. Monogamy is the practice of maintaining a romantic and sexual relationship with one person at a time. Technically speaking, most people are not monogamous because monogamy implies one person for your entire life. That's the technical definition. What most people are is exclusive. You know, rarely do you have somebody with one person for their entire life. But I'm going to, for the sake of understanding, I'm going to say monogamy during this talk, but you can talk to Dr. Darrel Ray about this concept, the difference between monogamy and exclusivity. So monogamy. Polyamory. Polyamory is the practice of engaging in romantic and or sexual relationships with multiple people with the enthusiastic consent of everyone involved. Polyamory is also called ethical non-monogamy, which is ENM for short, or consensual non-monogamy, CSM. So if you hear me say the phrase ENM, I mean ethical non-monogamy, and it's just the umbrella term for this concept. Attachment styles. So you're going to hear me reference attachment styles, specifically secure attachment, throughout this talk. Attachment theory is it needs to be an entirely separate discussion, but the gist of it is it's a psychological, evolutionary, and ethological theory concerning relationships between humans. Learning about attachment styles, again, is an entirely separate thing. There's some great books. This one, Polysecure, is a great book that covers attachment styles. I highly recommend you read it and go over it. And again, those are in the resources I have linked, and we'll share those resources in the chat. For me, and for this lecture, the simplified gist is that I grew up in a secure environment with supportive parents, and that reflects in my ability to create and maintain healthy relationships. So compersion. This is a big one, a really big one for polyamory. So compersion is sometimes described as the opposite of jealousy. Compersion is the feeling of joy and happiness in witnessing and hearing about a partner's attraction, love, and experiences with another person. So, for example, my partner, Nick, had a great date with his partner, Jane, and it made me really happy to hear that they had a wonderful time together. And compersion, again, this is something that everyone experiences. Like, are you happy your sports team won the Super Bowl? Anytime you feel happiness at someone else's joy, that is compersion. And in terms of polyamory, it's just extended to the joy that you feel when you see your partner with somebody else. Nesting partner. Nesting partner is the person you cohabitate with, and nesting partners can vary living structures just like monogamous couples, right? They can split rent. One partner could be financially supporting the both of them. They could pay mortgage. I live with my fiance and we are nesting partners, so we share domestic space and all the responsibilities therein. So that's just the term for nesting partner, which he'll come in near the end. You'll be able to see him. He's my wine fairy. Metamor. Metamor is the partner of my partner. So metamor refers to someone your partner is dating, but that you do not date. So in that example, Jane would be my metamor, somebody that my fiance is dating, but she and I don't date. Kitchen table polyamory. Again, we really love our fun words. This is a style of polyamory that emphasizes family style connections among the people involved in the network, whether or not they're romantically involved with each other or not. The name comes from the idea that everyone involved would be comfortable sitting around a kitchen table and sharing a meal together. There are some forms of polyamory that function on a less robustly informed structure, such as DADT, which stands for don't ask, don't tell, where a couple consents to multiple relationships, but they structure their boundaries to not acknowledge or share any external relationship or hookup information with each other. This isn't really an embraced style within the community and is generally seen as something that's still kind of controlled by insecurities or jealousy. For me, I would never date someone who functioned on a DADT style. If you don't have, I have to have a base level communication with my metamors to just function for me, for myself, and how I want to structure things. Okay, cisgender. And this leads into the next definition, which is why I'm defining it. So many of you maybe know the term cisgender. It just refers to someone who identifies with the gender that they were assigned at birth. A very oversimplified version is it just means the opposite of transgender. Again, that's really oversimplified. But for example, I'm a cisgender person. I have a uterus and a vagina. I was assigned female at birth. I identify with being a woman. That means I'm cisgender. And that brings us into our next definition, which is OPP, which refers to one penis policy. And this is a relationship dynamic where, let's say you have like a boyfriend and a girlfriend, they open up their relationship, but a rule is implemented, usually by the boyfriend, saying that no other men are allowed you're not allowed to date men. Like, I'm allowed to date other women. She has to be bisexual, obviously. She's allowed to date other women, but the only penis involved in this whole dynamic gets to be mine. And obviously OPP is inherently misogynistic and transphobic and shitty, and we all hate it. And that brings another shitty dynamic, harem builders. So harem builders, it's typically cisgender straight men who don't want their multiple female partners to date anyone else. So harem building and other toxic sexuality and relationship structures, it's not that they're uncommon, but they are absolutely not embraced by the organized polyamorous community, and they're denigrated and seen as unethical. There's tons more definitions to go. Maybe in the Hangout, I'll get into it. Like unicorn hunting is a big one. And maybe at the Hangout, I'll get into it. Okay, that's what I have so far with the definitions that will apply to this talk. Do you have any questions?
I think we are tracking.
Good.
And
Moving
don't forget, if you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll grab them. So far, so good.
Perfect. Okay, so again, more clarifications. Polyamory is not polygamy. So the simple definition of polygamy is the practice of having more than one wife at a time. And we understand that the cultural relevance that this practice is almost always exclusively high control religions and cults, Mormonism being the example that most everyone thinks of. Now, technically speaking, polyandry is the technical term, I know I'm using that word a lot, for a wife with multiple husbands, but because of the global patriarchy, this isn't a concept that's really in existence anywhere. The freedom for women to have the sexual agency and power to openly and safely choose multiple partners is not a common practice, but it's growing in the Western world, which is why we're having this talk with you right now. So polyamory is also not cheating. The distinction is the knowledge and enthusiastic consent of everyone involved. So, all right. Again, a lot of this talk is just going to be dispelling myths and assumptions and misconceptions, and to describe for those callers who are listening in and would like to hear a visual description, I have a meme that says, "Hoo boy, where to start?" And around the meme are different phrases. Polyamory is just cheating. Again, I clarify that. These relationships have no commitment, which I would like to counter that with many monogamous people rely on the structure of the relationship itself to prove commitment rather than actually doing the meaningful work to stay emotionally attuned to their partner. Caring about someone's well-being, their joy and their happiness, showing up in times of need, celebrating their achievements, none of those require monogamy. Right? But that is commitment to somebody. I'm engaged. I'm very committed to all of my partners. It doesn't work. Again, I have to ask what your metric of judging the success of a relationship is. When monogamous relationships fail, do you blame the exclusivity for the failure? Because when polyamorous relationships end, people always blame the dynamic of polyamory. That's the reason why the relationship ends. But again, I need you to think about, what do you define as a successful relationship? What is it one that ends in death? You're together forever and ever? Or is it one that ends amicably? And if so, is it there a certain amount of time that it has to span over where, oh yeah, that was a successful relationship? Just get those things rolling in your brain. Polyamorous people aren't loyal, and they have a higher rate of STIs, which again, in my resource list, that is not the case. There is a great medical study that was done that there is not a higher rate of STI infections among polyamorous people. And that's also partly because we do robust, regular screening, use barriers and constant check-ins with our sexual health. So, and then the last one, which I will get into very, very, very deeply at the end, which is it's just a scam made up by men as an excuse to sleep with more women. And I can't wait to get into that, but that's an entire other thing. So, all right. So why do I want to talk to you about these concepts? We're going to go two parts here because there are two big aspects of why I want to have this conversation with you. One, there are bad ideas from monogamy that I want you to get rid of. Okay. And then there are skills that are required for healthy E&M relationship dynamics that will help you regardless of your relationship style. So it's two parts. So we're going to cover the bad ideas that come from monogamy that regardless of your relationship style, you need to get rid of. So toxic monogamy. And what do I mean when I say toxic monogamy? The normalization of jealousy as an indicator of love. This is so ubiquitous across our culture in every media, every songs and TV and movies and poems, and it's a bad idea and we need to get rid of it. Toxic monogamy and misogyny are really deeply linked. When we talk about jealousy as an indicator of love, we see that violence against women is romanticized and seen as an indicator of affection. It starts so early in childhood. If he pushes you down in the dirt and rubs dirt on your face and pulls your ponytail, it means he likes you. Or if somebody is aggressively possessive, that just means they care about you a lot. Bad idea. Get rid of it. Next one. The idea that a sufficiently intense love is enough to overcome any practical incompatibilities. And this one's really brutal reality. If you have a couple, someone wants kids and the other one doesn't, and you just think well, we love each other enough, it's just going to work out. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. The idea that you should meet your partner's every need, and then if you don't, you're inadequate or they're too needy. The idea that a sufficiently intense love should cause to cease you to be attracted to anyone else for the entirety that you're in a relationship with that person forever and ever. The idea that commitment is synonymous with exclusivity. Again, I touched on commitment is not required by monogamy. You don't have to be monogamous to be committed. The idea that marriage and children are the only valid teleological justifications for being committed in a relationship. The idea that your insecurities are always your partner's responsibility to tiptoe around and never your responsibility to work on. The idea that your value to a partner is directly proportional to the amount of time and energy they spend on you, and it is in zero-sum competition with everything else they value in life. And that the idea of being of value to a partner should always make up a large chunk of how you value yourself. And this is a really big one that we're going to get into later on sense of self and sense of worthiness. Okay, next slide. Now we're going to the part that is the good stuff. So These are skills required to have a healthy E&M dynamic that will help you across your life, regardless of the type of relationship you have. If you're with your high school sweetheart and you're planning on dying together, this will still be a skill list that will be helpful to you. And this is not comprehensive. So emotional regulation, big one. Check-ins. Okay, so, and again, sorry with my notes. All right, so what a check-in is check-ins are ongoing discussions about your emotional health, your needs and desires, expectations, boundaries, etc., with your partner. They are paramount for healthy dynamics. And too often people in exclusive relationships just kind of like skip this step because, again, you're relying on the nature of the dynamic to just fill in those gaps for you. But this is also why if you struggle to identify and express your feelings, this can create foundational problems in any relationship. Education on attachment styles, collaborative problem solving. There's a really good book. I think it's called Unchangeable. I forgot to put that in the list, but it's a great book about learning how to solve interpersonal problems. It's helpful across the spectrum. Education on attachment styles. Again, that's an entirely separate discussion. It's really important. Robust knowledge of boundaries and expectations of everyone involved. Humility and willingness to admit fault and take accountability, intense self-reflection and introspection, and the ability to express your needs, desires, and expectations. And on that, the ability to reflect on which of those are reasonable and healthy and come from a place of security. And that when feeling jealousy, because spoiler alert, jealousy is an emotion that all human beings feel, including polyamorous people, reflecting on the origin of the emotion and discerning if it is stemming from an unmet need. And again, Polysecure is a great book. I highly recommend it. It's in the list. It talks about that. Okay, so obviously I have to have a Star Trek meme in here. So this is to describe what's happening to those who are calling in. This is a scene from The Next Generation. So Ensign Wesley Crusher is having a conversation with the bartender Guinan. There was a young woman his age who came aboard the ship. He developed feelings for her, but then she had to leave. And so he's really sad. And he says, "I'm never going to feel this way about anyone else." And Guinan replies, "You're right." He looks up at her and says, "I didn't expect you to say that." And she says, "There will be others, but every time you feel love, it'll be different. Every time is different." So probably the biggest response as a polyamorous person is just how can you do that? And how can you love more than one person? And you already love more than one people. You love all your children, you love both your parents, maybe you love multiple people in your life. And if we're talking about, okay, well, let's bring in the element of romance, let's bring in the element of sexuality. We're going to get into how that too is a spectrum. Intimacy is a spectrum, romance is a spectrum, sex is a spectrum. And embracing people along that spectrum is something that polyamorous people have that's the whole magic skill that we've kind of like learned how to do. So this brings us into, I want to kind of get into, and I apologize if I'm jumping around and it's a little scattered about this. There's just so much to go over. So I want to talk about the link between toxic monogamy and religion, and talking about codependency. So to describe what's on the screen, there's a little illustration of a man and a woman, and it says codependency looks like, and it says an unhealthy obsession with the relationship, struggling to identify your emotions, being heavily reliant on the other person to feel good about yourself, lack of identity without them, overwhelming fear of being abandoned and doing anything for them and ignoring your own needs in order to be loved and chosen. And for those of you who, like myself, have deconstructed religion, I would like to ask, does this sound fucking familiar to you? So, I want to deconstruct the idea that I am half of one whole. I am a whole entire person all on my own. And monocentric culture encourages people to see themselves as half of one whole and to complete themselves through a monogamous relationship. And a relationship does not complete me. Learning to be happy and safe with yourself and your inner world is foundational to being in a secure polyamorous relationship, but it also helps you even if you're monogamous. And most of us are familiar with the idea that we are somehow incomplete on our own, because again, religion tells us that explicitly, that in order to be satisfied and fulfilled, we have to have a relationship with God. And we hold on to a shocking amount of this codependency in relationships and struggle to recognize the value of our independent selves once we've left religion. This is especially true for women because independence within religion is not embraced and often downright denigrated. You know, we have to find a man for us to be complete. And about the connection between religion and polyamory, and bear with me about this, I'm going to go into like sensations that I had before and after and why they feel similar to me, because my journey of becoming an atheist in some ways was just as powerful as deconstructing monogamy. And I'm going to explain why, that emotional journey. So my journey into polyamory reflects the sensations, because when I was a believer, considering existing without a God belief was quite literally unfathomable to me. And it wasn't even the idea of like leaving the church or not being a Christian anymore. That was so incomprehensible. It was that I truly did not believe that I could live in a reality where there is no justice after death. You know, learning about genocide is a really soul-shattering experience. And you start to learn about genocide when you're in like 6th or 7th, 8th grade. For those across the pond, it's around like, that means like, I don't know, 12, 13, when you start learning about genocide. And I have these crystal clear memories of being caught in this intellectual tumble dryer of emotions during my deconstruction of, there is no way that I believe this religious bullshit. The entire Christian theology sucks ass, but I can't stay sane without a God belief, because then there would be no justice for all these murdered innocent people. And in the same vein, when I was an exclusive person, if you had approached me saying that like, or the concept of non-monogamy, it would have been unfathomable to me. There is no fucking way I could be in a relationship with somebody that loved other people or was with other people, or vice versa. I could love multiple people. And you're like, oh, but then once you're there, you actually can do it. And I'm doing it now. But an important part for that journey for me is with the non-monogamy journey is the sheer time it stretched over. This was a slow process for me, which was helpful for me because it gave me time to process at my own pace and get comfortable with different aspects for it. I started my polyamorous journey started in 2015. So it's been a long time that I've been slowly like transforming into the person that I am now. So this is a really important slide because, again, I want you to start rethinking relationships, rethinking what you know about sex, intimacy, romance, love, all of these things. So to describe what's on the screen, on one side, we have a box and it says intimacy, and in that box is foreplay, sex. On the other side, also intimacy, intellectual dialogue, sharing joy, fears, and shame, exploring creative passions and hobbies, mutual vulnerability, hugging and cuddling, discussing sense of purpose and values, space for difficult conversations, and communicating expectations. So again, you might find yourself looking at that intimacy list going, wow, I'm in a monogamous relationship, but there are people that I include, that I share these values with. Again, the spectrum of intimacy. It is not just, I'm in a relationship with somebody, the end, that's it, and everybody else is in this other box. That binary thinking is just so not helpful when it comes to the spectrum of human relationships. So, all right. Again, let's pause real quick. Is there any comments or questions you have before I get into the next part?
We have had some questions come in. We could read you a couple of them. Someone had one that I think is pretty interesting. They asked in regards to check-ins, how often do you do check-ins, and is there a template you can recommend?
We're going to do that at the end. That is such a great question. Thank you so much for asking. We're going to talk about that at the end. Okay. I'm not trying to like push that question aside. I've got a lot more stuff to go through. Great question. Thank you.
Carry on.
Okay. So do you remember how I said, I hope everyone is here with an open mind and an open heart?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is the part where if you had told me this as a monogamous person, I would have I would have never believed you, which is from a meme. Okay, so for me, after I have experiences with other partners, whether or not that's a romantic date somewhere or a trip, or if it is just sex, I feel more connected and satisfied with my relationships as a whole, especially with my fiance nesting partner. My sexual satisfaction with him is much higher when I'm engaged with others because my general sexual stimulation is much higher. And I realized that the reason I feel more in love, speaking of which, he's pulling up right now. If you hear my dogs barking, I apologize. There is nothing I can do to stop that. I realized that the reason I feel more in love and more connected while having relationships with others is that I am empowered to exercise my own choice and agency, and having more, for me, having more independence and being trusted makes me feel more secure in my relationships. It's the opposite of resentment for me. And polyamory for me is a liberation. And to quote some nerdy comic book stuff, with great power comes great responsibility. I want to clarify that this isn't just like, I get to do whatever I want, whenever I want to. I do have a responsibility to each of my partners. And just like what people are familiar with to exclusive relationships, my secure attachments are commitments to make space, to be there when they need me, to have time, emotional labor, interpersonal check-ins. Again, we'll talk about that later, constantly, all the time. And so again, that specific phrase, maybe like, I can't comprehend, like, you're telling me you hook up with somebody else and you feel more in love with the person that you're like going home to. And yes, the answer is yes, I do. For me, I do. Again, talking about the link between toxic religious stuff and monogamy, purity culture, which please go watch. We have an RfRx talk about purity culture. It's fantastic. I don't know if someone's going to link it in the chat. I highly recommend it. So purity culture greatly influences our relationship dynamics, even when we think we've deconstructed the harm. This is especially true when it comes to open and positive sexuality. We have these lectures here at RfRx, and we have this entire organization of RfR, not just as a tool. We don't just, this isn't just to provide resources for those who are struggling. It's also because we want to provide tools for you to help discard these concepts that are robbing you of your joy. And purity culture is one of them. It's deconstructing purity culture is vital for any healthy and secure sex life, regardless of your exclusiveness or number of partners, because we know that shame and guilt poisons even natural solo masturbation habits. So purity culture fucks up like every aspect of your sexuality. So another meme, gotta know me, I have memes. So this is it's a photograph from the Hamilton play of the king on stage. And the caption is, "If you have been polyamorous all along, why didn't you try that earlier?" And the quote is, "I wasn't aware that was something a person could do." And many polyamorous people express this of, I just didn't know that this was a relationship dynamic that I could engage in. And there's a reason why polyamory has been really common in the queer scene for a long time, because queer identity is validated through polyamory. As a bisexual or pansexual person, they're interchangeable. Polyamory is a fulfillment of my sexual orientation. If I was exclusive with one person, then that means that there would always be desires towards other genders that need to be included in my life, that for me to feel satisfied and fulfilled. And I'm not going to get too deeply into this, but I am also in the kink community, which is another big reason as to why polyamorous lifestyle works so well for me. I have different kinds of sex with different people, and they're all satisfying and wonderful in their own ways, but it's the variety that is something that is truly creates fulfillment for me. My sexual spectrum is varied, so it goes to reason that my partners would be as well. I also have a variety of emotional needs, so my variety of partners help fulfill those for me. Expecting one person to fulfill every single aspect of your identity is a lot of pressure and not great to put on a single person. Different people understand different aspects of myself. I have started dating a casual attachment so far, and they deconstructed religion. And so we are connecting on a level that is really intense, that my other secure attachments who haven't deconstructed religion the same way I have, they can be sympathetic but not empathetic. The zeitgeist of monoromantic ideals overwhelms our ideas for what healthy and supportive romantic and sexual relationships can look like. Because even when we've left religion, we are utterly inundated with the idea that you simply love one person at a time, and any dynamic beyond that is toxic, shallow, and unethical. And again, back to the journey of like before and after leaving religion, before and after becoming polyamorous, I had feelings that echoed my angry atheist phase once I reached the profound joy and satisfaction that secular living had to offer after experiencing years of a healthy and thriving polyamorous life. Because many of us relate to the frustration of feeling like you've been lied to about such a foundational reality to your new life. You know, you're told that life out of religion is dark, miserable, and hollow, and atheists are hateful and immoral. And then you get there, it's like, wow, I was really fucking lied to about the life that I can live outside of religion. And it's so much better on this side, and so much less like anxiety and fear and sadness. And for me, it was the same way with like, who told me that this relationship dynamic wasn't something that I should do or could do, because I'm doing it. And I don't have, every day I feel like I can't find more room in my heart for more joy and happiness. And then yet I manage to squeeze more in there. I am so overwhelmed at all times with how much support and love in this community. And it's like, yeah, whoever told me that I couldn't do this. Okay. So speaking about that, it's a tweet. It says, yes, I'm going to dead name Twitter. It's a tweet. I used to think polyamorous people had a superpower that I didn't understand, that I didn't possess. Now I understand that there's people willing to look their jealousy and insecurity in the eyes with compassion and curiosity instead of shame. And honestly, that's way more badass. So this is touching on the concept of compersion too. So, it's a skill that you can learn. With work, you can switch your emotional response from jealousy to compersion. Because again, that's like, how do you not get jealous? How do you not get jealous? I hope to go more into that into the Hangout, but I'm just going to gloss over this right here because I'm not going to go into the psychological and emotional process for this. It's far too lengthy for this talk. I did bring, I do have a book list in the resource list to go over that will cover that, so that if y'all want to like look at those books, please feel free to order them. They do cover that in extensively. So we're going to go back to remember when we were going through the misconceptions and the myth that polyamory was just a scam made up by dudes who wanted an excuse to sleep with more women, and oh my dear sweet summer child. Okay, so getting into
that's religion, Glenda. That's religion.
It literally is. Sorry, I'm not trying to shout. It literally is, though. That's religion. You're referring to fucking religion.
I know I am.
Oh,
I wasn't being facetious.
No, I know. Okay. So, and let me time check real quick. Okay. All right.
You're good. You're solid.
Cool. All right. So ENM, ethical non-monogamy, provides women with more choice and agency, which is a threat to the patriarchy. Think of the constant and ubiquitous narratives about female sexuality and gendered relationship paradigms. Women are viciously demonized for having sexual agency, and we are told that we need to be caretakers for our singular male mate and that the children we are supposed to have, which team getting our tubes tied is over here, to engage in a relationship dynamic where women are making active choices to their sexual partners is to inherently go against a status quo that has aggressively asserted itself. And we've really seen in recent years the profound and aggressively organized efforts to control reproductive health, our bodies, and our choices. So the myth that it's just all run by women, you might be surprised to learn that the contemporary polyamorous movement is entirely led by women. The majority of the most well-regarded and prolific books have all on the subject. These are all written by women. All of the websites on my resource tab, which I have multiple websites, these are all run by women. All the major content creators and the most respected content creators are women. So a factor as to why this is because historically women are doing the emotional labor required to maintain interpersonal relationships. We have the social conditioning and gendered cultural training required to maintain interpersonal relationships and to establish the dynamic that secure relationships require. As the patriarchy continues to be challenged, yay, more men are given space to explore these aspects of themselves and their inner emotional state and needs, which is priming them to have more secure attachments. Again, attachment theory. This is why the polyamorous community is by and large like very leftist and progressive, because any dynamic of a woman openly choosing multiple male partners is incompatible with toxic masculinity and misogyny, because those concepts are foundationally rooted in the control and submission of women. So in order for me to form an attachment with a male partner, whether or not that's secure or just casual, they need to respect my independence and agency and not just have an understanding of those concepts, but to truly embrace them. And for myself, as well as all of the women I know in the community, even in my own little personal community, any indication of jealousy, entitlement, controlling behavior, or slut-shaming misogyny arises, that connection is severed. And I'm clarifying this feminist perspective because, again, this cultural idea that polyamory was just made up by men to sleep with more women, and there is a very brutal awakening for people who choose to engage in this dynamic, which I will get into a little later. And then a point, I hope this isn't too jarring to like fit it in here. I was trying to think of like where to fit in this point of the unrealistic expectation of one person fulfilling all of your needs. This is especially powerful if you don't cultivate friendships and a community outside of your partner. So this is a phenomenon that's recognized, especially among men, right? I have a podcast to recommend. It's called The Lonely American Man. It was produced by Hidden Brain for NPR. I cannot emphasize this podcast enough. It's such required listening. It's really important to understand gendered relationship dynamics in the United States and abroad. Like, it's just a really important one. But it's easy to see why resentment and dissatisfaction would be so high among women in exclusive marriages, because women are expected to do the labor of an entire village. Polyamory appeals to me because my male partners are supported by multiple people. I'm not expected to do the entire emotional labor for one person. And the same thing with sexual liberation. To be in control of my own sexuality isn't just to consent to sexual experiences, but to enthusiastically choose my own sexual experiences. So we're going to move right on to another Star Trek meme. So it says, the goal of polyamory is to acquire enough partners to pull off a successful heist. And it's a scene from Deep Space Nine where they're like going into a casino, which is great because also I live in a place with casinos. So we're getting into the end of the talk. So maybe after all that I've said, you've decided, I would like to try polyamory. Maybe this is something for me. And I just want to clarify some important things because I want you to be prepared. You can feel incredible pressure when engaging in a lifestyle or ideology that goes against community or cultural norms. And we all know this here because most of us have come from high control religions into secularism. In that same vein of judgment, we can experience as those who've rejected religion, going against the cultural norm of monogamy can generate intense feelings of being judged and watched. While the availability of resources is changing, you are entering a relationship structure for which there is little to no positive representation in media, as well as minimal support in general. Just like losing your faith in a highly religious environment, this can generate intense feelings of isolation, loss, and frustration. And similarly, when you experience positive E&M, positive polyamory, you'll likely want to share and discuss these experiences with others, but find that community support is minimal and feel like there is no one to talk to save for online communities. The social stigma against E&M can be extremely high, just like deconstructing religion. I really want to emphasize this point because I want you to be prepared should you choose to explore this relationship dynamic. Many people are disgusted and judgmental, but there is not an insignificant amount that is downright hostile and angry. And even in the past week of posting about this talk, if you've been on social media, you've seen that people are deeply, deeply upset about this concept. The amount of dismissiveness is staggering. That won't last. You're not in a real relationship. You don't know what commitment is. You're just single with extra steps. And that can be really tough to kind of just deal with that judgment for people. There are many steps and important things to consider before exploring E&M, and arguably the most important is to decide why you want to be E&M. Don't do it for a person. Don't do it for the person that you're with. You need to find the reason within yourself why you choose to engage in this relationship dynamic. Opening up your relationship or becoming polyamorous in an attempt, or because your current partner wants to, or in an attempt to save or spice up your current relationship, might not go well. Just like monogamy, there will be difficulties and hardships with your relationships. You will experience, sorry, my cat is playing with something. You'll experience heartbreak and make mistakes and be forced to face your deepest insecurities. For some people, they take to E&M like a duck to water, but for others, they have a much more arduous journey of confronting and working through their insecurities and doing the inner work to be supportive and healthy, both for themselves and for their partner. Okay, and I'm going to touch on this. All right, so this is a screenshot, again, another meme from probably the greatest show ever made, which is What We Do in the Shadows. It's available on Hulu. Please go watch that show. It's hilarious. And it's a meme of Nandor the Relentless in a club. And the caption is, dudes, online dating doesn't work. Their profile. I'm looking for someone to have intercourse with and maybe some light housekeeping. So remember when I talked about like, oh, it's just a scam made up by men to sleep with more women? I want to say, oh, my dear sweet summer child, because again, if you want to explore polyamory, I want to acknowledge the uphill battle that you're going to face if you are a cis straight man interested in being polyamorous. And there are several reasons why, and they're important. Regardless of your own personal life and how you were raised, you exist in a patriarchal social structure. And this is true around the globe. Talking about ubiquitous global patriarchy and sexism in general is an entirely separate discussion. It's entirely separate 50 discussions. This means that you're going to have to do the work of unlearning sexist ideology that you have been indoctrinated with since birth. And this is especially true if you've come from a patriarchal faith. Entitlement towards women is one of these major points. The ownership of our bodies and our labor exists across all heterosexual relationship dynamics. If you are a man in a relationship with a woman and y'all are planning on opening up, you need to prepare yourself for the brutal reality of the dating scene. You are likely to find yourself on the sidelines struggling to find partners while your girlfriend is constantly bombarded by offers, especially if she is bisexual and dating femmes and women. There are several reasons for this, chiefly of which is that women have done the math and we have found that most men are more trouble than they're worth, especially in regards to finding male partners that don't have all of those sexist traits. Finding a male partner that doesn't just respect bodily autonomy, but actively makes an effort to protect it, understands and practices foundational consent, doesn't slut shame or have shitty attitudes towards women's sexuality, is an attentive and non-selfish lover, has robust communication skills, healthy and constant self-reflection, does their share of domestic labor. This goes on and on and on, which is why that dynamic, it's in poly circles, it's actually called the switcheroo. There's a great article on Polyland about it, actually. And then we're closing it out. This is the last tweet, promise. The tweet is, the worst part about being in an open relationship, is getting a second opinion on all your worst traits. If one partner thinks you steal the sheets, that's just like their opinion. If a second partner confirms you steal the sheets, now you're a sheet thief and a gaslighter, which so funny. So the conclusion is that there are harmful ideas tied to monogamy and exclusivity that have a negative impact on relationships, regardless of your relationship dynamic, whether you're exclusive or you're open or you're very casual. It's important to recognize these traits and make an effort to deconstruct them, even if you were to stay single for the rest of your life. You are an independent, full and whole human outside of a relationship. You have value and identity that is not dependent on a romantic partner or a deity. My conveyance of what I have experienced and learned on my journey of being polyamorous is simply meant to share some new ideas with you and to get you to consider that human relationships in a way that you may not have thought of before. And I just want to really thank everyone for their time and having me.
That was amazing, Glenda. Thank you so much for sharing that with us again. And thank you for sharing that at the excursion as well. I love that we got to share it here too, so the people who couldn't make it to that one were able to benefit from it also. This was great.
Okay, oh my goodness. Let me take a drink of water. Okay.
Yes. Take a drink. And while you do that, do you think it would be fun if we shared the results from the poll
Yes,
earlier?
I would love to see them, and I'm mostly curious about the last question.
Me too.
Shamelessly, mostly curious.
Let's see what we got here. Okay, so the first question was, what do you know about polyamory? And only 5% of people said they had never heard of it, probably because they had to read a description of the show before they came into the show. So that would have been the first time that they heard of it, even if they hadn't heard of it before. So it would be really unlikely that someone got here having not heard of it. But that is neither here nor there. Moving on. I know a little about it, but not much. That was 54% of people. And then 41% said, I feel confident in my knowledge about it. So, okay, we have some knowledgeable folks here, which is often the case at RfRx. We have smart folks in here.
Yes, we do.
Big brain people.
Yes. Okay, so the next question was, what are your feelings about polyamory? And 59% of people reported having promising positive feelings.
Promising too.
Promising. My feelings are promising. We're not committing yet, but it's the forecast is promising.
We're building. We're going up the incline.
But 3% of people, which is important, said that they had a negative feeling towards polyamory. And then, 37% of people said neutral. So we had kind of a range here, which is nice. I would love to hear people comment more later on, maybe in the Hangout, about if this talk impacted how they felt about it one way or the other. That would be fun to know.
Oh, right. Yeah, I should have exit poll. Damn.
We'll ask at the end. We can
Sure.
we'll figure it out. And then the most important question, honestly, we all know this is the most important question. Which Star Trek bridge crew would you want to be in a polycule with? Okay, here are the results. The people have spoken. 17% said the original series. I'm thinking that is largely driven by Spock, but that could be my bias speaking. The clear reader was The Next Generation at 41%.
Damn.
Wow.
Kate McFadden and Marina Sirtis,
Yeah. Ooh, that's true. That's true. And I know a lot of people kind of have a thing for data. I know that can be
there is a data fetish on the
anatomically
interwebs.
correct program with several techniques. Yes.
Right. Fully functional.
Yeah.
Fully
functional. Yes, fully.
Okay.
There's so many sex programs. There's all the sex programs.
I love that was a thing.
I know, I do too. It was great.
Yes. Also, Tasha Yar was awesome. There, I said it.
Sure, and she was done dirty, and I will die on that hill.
Agreed.
Done dirty, and I'm going to die on that hill.
We can. That can be us. We can do a whole RfRx where we just dunk on Rick Berman and all of his bullshit.
Right.
2024, folks, come back for that episode. We'll make it related to religion.
We'll figure it out. We'll make it happen.
To be decided. Okay, 11% of people said Deep Space Nine. 13% of people said Voyager, and people are putting in the chat also why they chose some of these bridge crews. So if you're in the chat, check that out. Let's see, what did I say? 13% said Voyager, 6% said Enterprise, 2% said Discovery, only 6% for Strange New Worlds, which was my pick. I'm in the minority.
I think it's because you haven't watched the show. It's because you haven't watched the show.
Yeah, because now I'm judging all of you that did not pick that series.
You're choosing Strange New Worlds.
Oh, you're right. This very well could be actually just a reflection of which series more people have watched. Hadn't thought of that. Good point. Good point. And then 6% said Lower Decks. Also a good option.
Pendy.
Yes.
Pendy and Boylan.
So those are our mega important poll results. And I guess we should also go to the Q&A now. What do y'all say?
Yes. Okay.
We didn't talk about all of our poly relationship fantasies with Star Trek crew and in the hangout.
Yes, stick around for the hangout for that.
To answer there was a great question. It was, how often do you do check-ins? So everyone is different. My check-ins with my foundational partner, as it were, just because we share a domestic space, my fiance, eventually to be husband. We talk every day, having emotional check-ins on where we feel with partnerships. Again, hi.
Yay!
It's the
Yay,
wine
wine
fairy.
fairy!
The question
Yay,
is,
wine fairy.
how often
For the win.
For the win. He came in just right time.
I feel like it's almost, in low grade, it's all like daily, right? Like low grade, it's daily.
General check-ins, like daily relationship check-ins, I'd want to say at least once a week.
Right. And it's not like we have it scheduled. It's just like every time we have a date with somebody, or we go see any of our other partners, when we come back, we go like, well, how was it? And did you have fun? And like, what are things you experienced? And, different people have different boundaries. There are some people like, okay, I want to hear about like the meal you had, but I don't want to hear any like sexual details, or vice versa. Like, I actually, I care about like, what are you exploring with yourself? And I feel like it's pretty much every time it's like all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. So I hope that answers someone's question. Next question.
For sure. Okay. Next question is, how do you get from jealousy to compersion?
I'm going to have a response that's going to make all of you very upset, and I'm sorry. I don't really experience jealousy that much, and I hate it. Because like this question needs to be asked from other polyamorous people who do struggle with jealousy, and I'm not trying to sound like the most obnoxious asshole with a superpower, but I just don't really. So in some of the books that I've read about polyamory, jealousy, if we identify the emotion, is it stemming from an unmet need? If Nick has an experience with somebody and I experience jealousy, where is this feeling coming from? Is it because I want also to have that experience? Does that mean that, okay, well, you went on a road trip with your girlfriend and I really wish we could have had that. Okay, well then let's like make time to also do that experience, to share that moment with each other, if that's something that I also want to have. And I just, my compersion is just really high. Again, we've been in a relationship for almost 10 years. It's been over the course of a really long time. Absolutely not.
Out.
Sorry, dogs. Sorry. It's been over the course of a really long time. And like when either of us experiences joy with somebody else, it just makes me really happy. If Nick goes and has a date with his girlfriend, like I get I'm happy that he's happy, and I'm really sorry that that's insufferable.
No, it's not. Yeah.
No,
go
it's
ahead,
not.
Helen.
Because like I can know for myself, like when I was definitely going through deconstruction and working through my shit, even though I'm with a partner that's securely attached, it took me a long time to get to this point where I was told I don't have any jealousy, because we're very secure and we're always talking to each other and checking in. As long as that open communication is ongoing. Right. And also too, if you're having an issue with something, and you can even recognize this is my shit, but this is how I'm feeling, and I want to work out together how we work through this particular, feeling either one of us is having, that isn't so much like that gets away of law the jealousy, because everything is open. What depending on the type of relationship you have, and those are the terms that you agreed upon, and it might morph and change over time. But as you're going through this particular experience, you have to have open communication, and you have to and know what each other is doing, even and then if you're feeling an emotions like jealousy or concern, or even if like the person they're into you're not vibing with, you say like, bring up your concern, and then you, like any other relationship you have to work out together what is going to bring you to that comfort level.
Right. You're not letting that shit simmer and just not hold, and just, I'm just going to hold on to my feelings and not talk about it. Even if you think like, wow, this is coming from, I feel really petty, I feel really immature, doesn't matter. You still fucking talk about these things with your partners. You still acknowledge it, you bring it to the surface. And another point about jealousy is stemming from insecurity and confidence. And yes, I struggle with like pretty debilitating imposter syndrome at times. And as every human being on the planet, I struggle with insecurity and things like that. But generally speaking, we're both pretty secure, confident people. And that helps a lot with feelings of jealousy, of like,
even the minute feelings of jealousy that I had first dating was, I sat down and kind of like thought through it and realized it wasn't necessarily relationship jealousy. I was just envious of the activities that you guys were getting to go do.
Here's the other thing with polyamory that I'm glad we're segueing into this to bring up. Polyamory, you are actively choosing to be with a person every day. You have options and you have choices. And unlike the sunk cost fallacy that exclusive relationships really heavily get into, you can end dynamics at any time. And so if somebody is with you, it's because they are choosing to be with you every day. And that confidence of like, well, like, I'm not necessarily worried about them, leaving me. I mean, if whatever works out to make their life happiest for them, if that included changing the nature of our relationship dynamic to not be romantic anymore, not be sexual anymore, that would be a grieving process. But again, I would hold space for them to do that. God, sorry. Am I answering this question correctly?
Yes.
Next one.
This is great. Yeah. Next one. Helen, what's the next question?
Okay. Okay. So what is the difference between a polycule and a polycube? Let's do a lighthearted one.
Wait. Polycute is what you said?
Polycule and a polycube.
Cube.
Like the Borg.
The Borg, yes.
Yes. I am the Queen Borg.
Are you all connected to each other in a hive mind?
Resistance is
which Borg queen do you want to be in a polycube with?
This will be, oh my God, but that's the best polycule Halloween costume. It's like, and then you meet someone like your distinctiveness will be added to her.
Now I'm thinking about like Borgs having polycules and relationships and
like 7 of 9, and then the 9 is the
yeah, that's right. That's
up for the one Jerry Ryan is in.
This is my fanfic, everybody.
Solid. I want to read this one. Is that a thing though? Is a polycube a thing? Is that a term?
Yeah.
I've only ever heard of, and I guess I should have defined polycule. So polycule is a play on the word molecule, which if you think of, like, if you were to map out like your partner, their partners, their metamors, whatever, it maps into looking like a molecule shape. So polycule. So that's, I like the analogy of, my preferred analogy for my relationship dynamic is a celestial analogy, because I have my, it's a play on the phrase like, you're my whole world. No, you're not. You're not my whole world.
You're my sun. You're my star.
Like,
you're my moon.
I live in a universe, right? I am not terrestrially bound. You might be my moon. You might be my Jupiter. I have comets that come by, like they're long distance, and I only see them like every 6 months, but they're still important to me. They still make up my sky of my celestial relationships. And that's, yeah, not to be so astrophysics nerd about it, but yes.
I like it. Okay, so yeah, here's more of a philosophical question, I guess. Or maybe it's not. This may be an easy answer, or this may be let's have a whole other presentation on this. So you tell us. Right. Someone is wondering, is polyamory a sexual orientation?
That is such a great question. And and you know why? Because I have thought about this extensively. When I first became polyamorous, I would have said it was a choice. It's a type of relationship dynamic. Now, having been this way for almost 10 years, I will say, for me, it feels like an orientation. It's not like I was only ever cheated on. So I possess the ability to be monogamous, exclusive. And it's not like I couldn't, but I would never live that way again with my life. I just know for myself as a person, it is not the way that I function as a person with spectrum of relationships. I could never be exclusive again. And so it feels like an orientation to me. It feels like a truth about myself.
Okay. That's a good way to
But poly people, there's a, you know, that is a huge argument. It's a great debate that's going on like, is it an orientation or is it not? Is it, you know, there are some people who they have been serial cheaters since the time that they were starting relationships, and then realizing like, oh, it's just that I'm polyamorous and I need to like have like, this is the type of relationship dynamic that's going to work for me. I'm never going to be an exclusive person. But for both of us, he was also only ever, both of us came from monogamous relationships. We were the person that was cheated on. And yet we both, it just fell into it. It just fits really well with our life.
To answer if it's an orientation, I think that will depend on the person that you talk to. It'll vary from person to person.
That's a great ongoing debate within the community for sure. Great question, whoever asked that.
I think
well done.
I think also too, like it could be, you know, like I'm on a spectrum, like me and my husband, we're poly, but but it's not an everyday thing. Like, we're not swingers. We want to have
I'm not
friendships with people. Yeah, I'm not a swinger. I have to have some kind of emotional connection with the person that I'm going to form a relationship with, and have clear, like, this is what we are, and this is how because that makes me feel safe, and I have to know these things. But also too, like, we'll go through periods where right now it's just us and we're okay with it, and I think that's normal too, because every relationship. That's how things,
the beginning of our relationship, for all intents and purposes, like we were monogamous for like the first, I mean, we had like once a year or something, one of us would have like a hookup with somebody that we knew or whatever, but like the first several years of our relationship,
it was very much a blue moon.
Right. We were setting up a house because we were moving in together, and then we bought a house together. So there was a lot of our relationship that was just spent like building this like foundational trust, and both of us worked full-time jobs. We just didn't have a lot of time for anybody else. So that doesn't mean you're not polyamorous, but there are people who like they only are with maybe 2 people in 50 years or whatever, but that doesn't mean that you're not polyamorous. It just is the, you know, structure of your relationship.
Okay, that's fair. Well, what other questions do we have, Helen? And I know we have a lot. We're going to get to as many as we can, but if we don't get to yours, it's not because
then we'll just have to answer it in the hangout.
Yes.
Okay, so this is actually an interesting one. In your observation, what groups of people are most likely to be polyamorous? Example, age group, race, gender, religious preference, economic strata, intelligence level, nationality, attractive versus plain or ugly people, etc., etc.
Those are great.
Heavy air quotes on ugly. That's a pretty
that's a heavy air quotes. I think like not American standards of beauty bullshit.
No, I'll tell you exactly. It's a bunch of depressed commie nerds is what it is. No, I mean that's
we're very depressed people.
That's the joke. No, the joke
so is sad.
All right. So as far as age range, that's an interesting question because, and we touched on it a bit. I initially had this in my glossary. I deleted it for time. Swinging has been around for a long time. It is a dynamic of open relationship that tends to be an older crowd, whereas polyamory tends to be I feel like it's generally millennial age, but I mean, but I'm a millennial, so I'm only like, that's my demographic of who I'm being exposed to. And
we're also isolated by the demographic of our region.
Right.
Where we are at is a entertainment industry where you have to be late 20s, early 30s,
right?
And then you get phased out. And to be here
like so the demographic of like the specific metropolitan area that I'm in. Now I will say that it does tend to be any alternative community at all. It's kind of part and parcel, like at Renaissance Festival, nerdy things, like polyamory is way more prolific in any sort of alternative scene that also deals with queerness, because again, remember how I talked about like queerness, there's a reason why polyamorous people have like in queerness has just been intersected for a long time, because it allows for a validation of your sexual identity. So demographics wise, that's a great question. And it's one of the reasons why like I have the privilege of being open about my relationship style, but remember when I talked about the fucking discrimination you can face being a polyamorous person? That doesn't just apply to the judgment of your friends and family. You can face workplace discrimination, medical discrimination. It can be really intense for somebody to be out as a polyamorous person. So there's a lot of we just don't have enough data yet to decide to like see where the demographic, but I will tell you that like queer autistic nerds, it's just like all of us, like if you, I mean, I feel like it's more often than not they're going to be polyamorous than you know, monogamous, but that's just the way relationship styles are changing now. People are realizing like, wow, actually I don't have to have some person fit all of my needs ever, all the time, forever. You know,
I think there's, and I think we should also distinction that you can be a poly person and be doing monogamous behavior.
Yeah,
you know, that
you can live by yourself,
or
yes.
that how you feel about things. And you know, but just because your behavior looks like, you know, because the outside world, like for me, I have to look like I'm in a cis-het relationship just because my family would lose their shit if they found I was queer and, you know, we engage in this lifestyle, like, and that's just because of you know, the types of relationships we have. You know, you're selective about who you let know, but just because, or even if you're still practicing the behavior, that doesn't mean that is not a part of who you are. It's just a matter of where you are, you know, how your life is looking, you know, what you want to explore. But it doesn't mean that like, if you don't have like whatever this version of the poly, you know, like you even said that too, Glenda, at the beginning, like whatever you're visualizing and you're not practicing that, doesn't mean that you're not doing it correctly, you know. And I think that that's another thing people have to get, like it's the same thing about queerness, you know, like, well, you know, my life doesn't like this, you know, I'm not practicing, you know, I'm not with the same-sex partner or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, I'm sorry.
Doesn't mean you're not queer.
It doesn't mean you're not queer.
You're not queer. Like
Yeah.
I'm not nesting with a woman, or I'm not nesting with a non-man, but that doesn't mean that I'm not queer and that I'm not interested in women, that I don't have sex with women. Like and no, I don't have a secure attachment that is a woman, but that doesn't mean, again, that I'm not interested in women.
Yes, sexual orientation can encompass both desires, wants, as well as behaviors and things that you are currently doing or have previously done or have not ever done. Those are separate
and it was
activities.
That, like, you know, that also, again, polyamory providing liberation for me, provided me the space to, because there's a concept known as compulsory heterosexuality, which I definitely feel like I was very much subjected to, and felt like, because I didn't come out as queer until it was actually through my other partner, David, who, again, we're in the kink community, and it was through one of his play parties that I was able to like, oh, I really am actually interested in women. It was like, I didn't, and again, like, I'm speaking very openly and frankly about my sex life. I was like, oh, I'm interested in women, but I'm not going to call myself queer because I haven't actually had an experience with women. And it wasn't until I literally had sex with another woman where I go, oh, I guess that means I am queer. But like, you don't, I promise, like, you don't have to, okay? Your experiences are not the same as your inner world and what's reflected. And I promise, like, you, even if you've never had a physical experience with a person of a certain gender or whatever, it doesn't mean that you're any less queer. And I'm not going to fucking gatekeep your queerness for you.
Your identity is not limited by your experience.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And so this is an interesting segue then to another question that we got, which said, a lot of what I read about polyamory is about sex, and I'm not against that, but I'm wondering, do asexual people do polyamory at all?
I love that this question is asked, because I'm screaming from the rooftops. Yes, 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 yes. And in fact, polyamory has, from the asexual people that I know, has been such a liberating experience for them, because they don't, if you're just in exclusive relationships, like, well, I can never be in a relationship unless I find another asexual or demisexual person. I can never be in a relationship with somebody because I'm not the type of person to provide them and fulfill that need. Whereas a polycule, we have in our extended polycule, we have several asexual people in our polycule who they don't, you know, it's just not an important part of their lives. It doesn't mean that they don't seek intimate. Remember, if we talked about that, like spectrum of intimacy chart of how much of those intimacy things they want to engage in, but not sex. And that's okay, because sex is a spectrum that you can, as a resource or as a need that you can seek from other people. So I know lots of asexual people where polyamory has been a liberation for them just based on that alone. I'm like, I don't have to like provide this to my partner and like deny them sex if they're going to be exclusive with me. So
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Helen, what else do we have? I know we've got a lot of questions, but we're going to try to do a couple more.
Okay, let me see.
I'll try to answer quickly.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
That we kind of answered that one. Okay. As a bisexual person myself, not me, I worried about being polyamorous plays into the stereotype of bisexuals being greedy or wanting to sleep around. How have you dealt with that? I've dealt with this, but I want to hear your answer.
Okay. All right. Here's the thing. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not as a volunteer for RfR and not as a representative of RfR, for my own personal opinion. If after I've done my education, if after I've done my meeting you where you're at and like dispelling some myths and trying to be as inclusive and calm and Socratic with my debate as possible, if after all that you're going to still call me a greedy whore, I formally invite you to suck my entire ass and die mad about it. You know, no, but I mean, yes, that question of that I'm just greedy. I'm not taking anybody off the table that you'd be interested in, because they're interested in being with multiple people. And if you want to be monogamous, then this person wasn't in your dating pool to begin with. And it's incredible, the irony of being called selfish and greedy when I would never presume to be able to provide anyone to fulfill someone's entire needs. I would never presume to be able to provide that for somebody. And yet, like, it's tight, but it's the brutal truth is there's a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of judgment and a lot of hate, and biphobia is very real. And people, you know, like, you just want it all. It's like, yeah, I do. Actually, I do want to have a lot of experiences with a lot of people. And you know what I'm not going to do is let myself be shamed by you. I already did that with religion. I am not going to live a life where I'm controlled by guilt and fear and shame. I'm just not. I have one chance on this planet. And then if that includes being with men and women, I'm going to do it.
Amen.
Ramen.
Hail Satan. I don't know.
Head cats, hail Satan.
Well done. Well done. So, on that note, or continuing on that, there has been quite a bit of literature written on this. You are not the first person to have come up with this, and you mentioned several resources with us, and someone was asking, this is a two-part question. First of all, can we go over again some of the links and resources that you have shared? And two, which one was about getting rid of codependency? Was it the book called Changeable or something else?
So Changeable, I haven't read cover to cover. I've only read little snippets. I actually think my twin sister is in the chat and she knows much more about collaborative problem solving than me. So I recommend, this is Polysecure. It's written by Jessica Fern. It's about attachment, trauma, consensual non-monogamy. I recommend getting it with the bundle. So it comes with a workbook, which is like, are you afraid to examine your inner world and your feelings? This is going to be your worst nightmare then, because this is a lot of brutal, like, crap. Now, Polysecure has a lot more dry psychology, but it's very, very, very good. And so learning those skills, the collaborative problem solving, which is the Unchangeable, which I'm sorry, I don't have the link to that book, but you can look it up, it's called No, it's called Changeable, I think.
I added it to the list.
Great. There's also,
Thank you.
I swear I have more than this. Again, a shameless plug, like Sex and God by Dr. Ray is a great one to just learn about like sexuality and relationships in general. I like Smart Girl's Guide to Polyamory. As far as like sexuality in general, there's Come As You Are, which is about female sexuality or AFAB sexuality. So many. And then I have different websites. Polyphilia is run by Luann Yao. I love her content. She's fucking phenomenal. She's got a great podcast. Highly recommend putting that person in your feed to just like see pop up on your TikTok or your Instagram or your Facebook or whatever it is. Polyphilia. There's Polyland, which has some great articles. Polypirates is another great one to follow. There's Love Without Boundaries. Again, all of these are run by women, all of them. So, but they're extremely queer positive, they're kink positive, sex positive. So they're great resources to get to.
Awesome. And I am dropping all of those into the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And where can people find you if they want to know more?
I do have an Instagram that after a year of not posting, I finally made a post a couple weeks ago. I've been on a hiatus. I'm back to it. My Instagram is Calliope Hoop. Calliope is my stage name. I do work as a performer. So, and on my stories, I do post when I get back to regularly posting. I do post like things about like art history and feminism and queer theory and stuff to like my Instagram stories. I have a website, glendajordan.net. That's mainly just for my art. I do work full-time as an artist. That's where I sell my works. If you're interested in buying things, that's where my work is posted. I do have a Facebook. I request that you not friend request me, that you just follow me on Facebook, because I won't respond to your friend request because I have quite a few. It'll go into the Smaug Dragon Horde of pile of just untouched messages and friend requests. I don't post that often, but if you wanted to follow me on Facebook, I do post some things every now and then that you can engage in. But again, don't message me. I won't answer. I won't open it. It's not going to happen.
I do want to ask one more question,
yes.
Just because I want the asexual people to understand that they want to know if asexual people can be in poly relationships.
Yes. Most resounding yes.
Yes. So just to be clear, yes.
Yes, so much so. Like so much so. More so than I would think a monogamous relationship. Polyamory is going to probably provide more relationship liberation for you than you thought possible.
Excellent. Well, that's actually good to know. Yeah.
Well, and again, that's also, remember how I talk about like the poly scene tends to be more leftist, more queer, more body positive. And that is the scene that understands and recognizes asexual as a valid sexual orientation, as opposed to like mainstream of like, that's just weird. So,
that's
and
fair.
And all of us here that have different levels of intimacy, not all intimacy is sex.
So. Again, it's a spectrum. It's not
spectrum. Everything's a spectrum.
Spectrum. Stop. Get rid of your binary thinking.
Yes,
please. Well, okay,
we have to close up now.
Yeah, we do. Is there anything else that you want to leave us with before we wrap up and go to the hangout? And remember, there is still a hangout after this, so stick around.
I guess I just want to really express my gratitude beyond words that you have honored me with listening to me ramble for an hour. I have members of my polycular actually here attending, and I love all of you so much, and it means a lot to me, and I'm not trying to get emotional, but like this is obviously something that's very important to me and transformative to me, and in the face of people getting extremely upset about my baseline existence, I really truly am honored and appreciated that all of you have been receptive to what I had to say.
Oh, thank you so much for coming
and
for being open about all of this. And I have to say, we have had quite a well-attended meeting this evening with a whole lot of engagement in the chat, and you're getting a lot of love. So thank you for being here and sharing all of this. It's been fantastic. And we are excited to continue the conversation with you in the Hangout, which we will move to momentarily. So let us now talk about what comes up next. We will be back again next week, same bat time, same bat channel. We are going to have next week's program. It will be called All Aboard Noah's Ark, a walk through the Ark encounter with Ross Blocker, no ticket required. And also upcoming, we are going to have Seth Andrews, we're going to have Dr. Ben, and Sarah St. Abaddon. So keep on coming back every week. We have an
Wow, we got the red carpet. Damn.
Yes, we do. I'm pretty excited. And it's not just because I volunteer here. And
we know all the people.
Yes, we do.
And we pay them all the atheist money,
which is $0.
I'm rolling in my wealth right now.
We're just all the evil secret societies we belong to, that's just flooding us with all the cash that I am not receiving.
There is none. I'm sure it's in the mail. But if you would like to see more free content between now and next week, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. It's Recovering from Religion, as well as our podcast, which is also called, you guessed it, Recovering from Religion. Wherever you get your podcasts, that's where you will find us. If you have comments, questions, ideas for future show topics you'd like to see, don't forget you can email us at rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org, and you can also check out our blog and our podcast at these links. Now, Helen, where can people find us on the social medias?
Okay, I'm assuming that all of you are living in the 21st century and are internet savvy, so I'm going to recommend that you go to our Facebook main page, facebook.com Recovering from Religion, and we also have a support groups page. So if you want to know more about RfR, also this is a really great place for you to post your own deconstruction story, things that you're dealing with, because you will get feedback from volunteers. And also there's some really wonderful people in the communities that have gone through the journey and they want to offer support. So if you need a little bit of extra support, you're looking to reach out, please go on to the Facebooks. We are on the artist formerly known as Twitter, known as X. So if you want to do some twixing and like post about RfR, this is where you get like little updates about support groups, what we're doing with Recovering from Religion and stuff like that. I am not on there, so I have no idea what people are posting, but I'm assuming it's good stuff. So if also we are on Instagram and we're also on TikTok. So please go to the Instagram. You just have to go to RfR.org, or on TikTok, just put in Recovering from Religion and we will come up. Okay, I'm going to read the feedback poll. Okay, this is the poll that we launched. That people, you give feedback about how you found out about us, how much you like this talk, if you want to hear other topics, blah, blah. You know how to do a rating system. You're smart. So question number 1, I'm going to read it for people. This program was relevant to me. 1, nope, I hated it. I don't know why I came here. Why did I attend this talk? 5, yes, this talk was amazing. I learned new things. I feel smarter now, and I'm going to use the resources and do all the things. 2 to 4, search your feelings. Maybe you need to do a little bit more searching and have to do with the internet knowledge and recent books, and that's okay too. Number 2, the speaker was clear and understandable. 1, oh my God, no, tin can, talking to 2 cans that couldn't understand, banana phone, it was terrible. I could not understand. 5, it was perfectly clear and understandable. It was like the speaker was standing right next to me and I could hear them perfectly. 2 to 4, adjust your settings on your speakers. Number 3, I will definitely attend future programs like this. 1, nope, this is terrible. I will never come back. You people suck. This is terrible. I will not be here. 5, oh my God, this is the best community ever. These are such wonderful people. I will come back and attend more and get more stuff into my brain. Awesome. 2 to 4 probably depends on topic, depends on time, and we get that and we understand that. Okay, how did you find RfRx tonight? 1, through the RfR online community Slack channel. 2, through our meetup event. 3, through Facebook, through the X and the Instagrams. through through the Discord, the RfR website, or other, which I am assuming that an alien downloaded information into your brain and told you to come here. So I'm just going to go with that. So now I'm going to introduce our wonderful president, Dr. Darrel Ray, to give us some final thoughts, opinions, you know, whatever's floating in his brain. And so let's say hi to Dr. Ray.
Okay, I want to open by saying this. I've studied this shit for 25 years. I've been poly myself for 25 years. I've read almost every book for 25 years. I've never seen a presentation anywhere near as good as this one. Glenda has knocked the ball out of the court. So I just want to say thank you, Glenda. It is an awesome job. I saw your talk and I thought your talk was amazing at the excursion, but it's even better tonight. I think your upgrades or whatever you did really made an even bigger difference. Anyway, I just want to thank you for that. It's pretty rare to get to see this guy. Anybody who's here, I just want to emphasize, you've seen the best. you go read all the books and all the articles, but you have seen the best. But there's a lot of details, of course, that Glenda couldn't cover. And I want to mention a couple things. First of all, I detest the word jealousy. I wish we could get rid of it in our vocabulary, because as Glenda says, it's really talking about what needs, what some underlying needs or fears. For example, many people say they're jealous when they're really when really what's going on is their fear of abandonment, for example, or fear of loss of resources, or fear of loss of connection. There's a lot of fears, but if as a therapist, if I could help a person get underneath and get rid of the jealousy word and say, well, what is the fear? What are you afraid of? Or what's the needs you're seeking? Then we can deal with that. But if somebody says I'm jealous, I have no idea out of the 50 different things it could be. And so as a therapist, I'm going to help people drill down into actual need, the actual fear. And from that, we can make enormous progress, usually pretty fast. And oftentimes it goes back to early childhood. You know, my father abandoned me and my family when I was a child. And I feel that sense of abandonment whenever my partner talks to somebody else that I think could be a rival, and I feel jealous. Well, no, you don't feel jealous. You feel fear of being abandoned, like your father abandoned you. So we can work on that. So I just want to throw that out there as that's kind of my view on jealousy. And I don't have time. I could do a whole talk on some of this stuff, but I just want to highlight that to underline what Glenda said. Second is there's been several questions that came up about this, and I want to throw out a term, and I do whole talks on this topic, and that's called socio-sexual orientation. If you think about sexuality as being a spectrum on a bell curve, of course, many people fall in the middle, but some people fall on the outer edges, the top and bottom, no judgment intended, top and bottom 20%, so to speak. Well, in terms, socio-sexual orientation is simply a spectrum on how you want to be sexual, and you can be restricted or unrestricted or somewhere in between. There's even a little test you can take, and I gave the link to Kara. You can put it up there. You can actually go take the test. It's only 9 questions or something like that, and you can score it yourself. But of course, most people are going to fall in the middle. But if you fall, let's say you score a 7, 8, or a 9, I think the scoring is 10. If you score a 7, 8, or 9, you're going to be in the realm of unrestricted, which means you like lots of variety in whatever your sexual relationships are. If you score a 1, 2, or 3, you are restricted. You don't want variety. You prefer to have a very stable, solid, same thing long term. And there's no judgment here. That one is not better or worse than the other, except the religion tells you unrestricted sex is sinful and wrong and all that. Well, polyamory, oftentimes, if you're polyamorous, you're probably on the unrestricted sexual side. It's just simply the difference between being extroverted and introverted. We all know introverted people. We all know extroverted people. and they're not good or bad people. That's just who they are. Some people like to climb mountains. Some people like to rock climb. Some people like to jump out of airplanes, with parachutes. Those people fall on the adventurous spectrum. Well, people that are high on social sexuality like to have lots of adventurousness in their sex and change, and well, anyway, you get what I'm talking about. So I just wanted to throw that out because I think the concept of social sexual orientation really helps explain what's going on and who are the people that are probably polyamorous. It is not the restricted sexual people on the social sexual index. It's the unrestricted people. And it's just like there's a lot of people that are extroverted, a lot of people are introverted, and there's no judgment. And that's the problem that Glenda talked a lot about. Our culture still judges people for being on the wrong end of whatever that spectrum is. Okay, so last two things is I hope you really enjoyed this. I think this is the best attendance we've seen this year or close to it. It was really well attended. I hope people got as much out of it as Glenda offered, because she offered us a lot to think about. And I hope if you haven't already, I hope you'll consider becoming a donor. Donate to us, monthly donations or one-time donations.
Give us your money.
That's the real atheist money. Give us your atheist money so we can do shit.
Real money.
So we can start paying Glenda and Helen. Yeah, right. And
I'm gonna start demanding its salary, Darrel.
We'll double it.
I do for you.
And Helen was never heard from again on RfRx. It was sadly her last episode.
And last but not least,
I became an uppity woman and Darrel couldn't handle it.
If you want to volunteer for us, hit that volunteer button and find out what you might like to do with RfR. Anyway, back to you, Kara.
Thank you, Dr. Ray, and thank you so much, Glenda and Helen, and all of our amazing team of troll stompers and moderators and Discord streamers and behind-the-scenes folks and board members and everybody that goes into planning these things, not to mention our post-production team and everyone else. It really takes a village, and this was wonderful. I'm so glad that everyone was able to attend.